It's the thing I get asked about the most when people hear the record is like, what happened to those drums, or what are those drums doing?
Yeah. It does an amazing job at reinforcing what a bass is doing, and it does an amazing job at staying out of the way of guitars as well.
It's like the amp is in the room, so you're not even recording the amp, you're recording the room.
It's not just there to limit the dynamic range, it does something to the transients.
These guys right here, I have them right there next to my volume knob for a reason, because I just use them on almost everything.
You can make quiet vocal takes feel quite upfront and quite in your face.
We have got a ridiculously exciting festive gear giveaway competition, and one winner will walk away with this incredible prize list. All you have to do is head over to the Tape Notes Patreon page at patreon.com/Tape Notes. Sign up for free and comment who you'd like to see on the podcast on the top pinned post. The competition will remain open until the 2nd of January, at which point a winner will be drawn. Good luck.
For my birthday, my family bought me this really solid Lomo 1919A, and those were like a Russian, the Russian version of the Neumanns made behind the Iron Curtain. And you have to be careful because sometimes you'll get them and they've been unscrupulously recapped and sold as authentic, but are not in fact. But I sang a lot into the Lomo for sort of more, some of the breathier songs. The Lomo through my Neve Decca into the BG2.
Right. I love the idea that your family were buying you microphones.
Yeah, they did. Well, because they asked me what I actually wanted, and I was like, I mean, it's not fucking pajamas. Like, do you want to know what I actually want? I'll tell you what I actually want. It's this microphone.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
You might see I'm actually recording into that microphone right now. This is a Beyerdynamic M500, but it didn't play a process in Tank. I think if I had one with me, it probably would have, all the percussion probably would have run through it if it was up to me. But yeah, I don't know. I fell in love with these weird ribbons. Maybe I'll give a new one to the people out there for this Tape Notes episode. I really like the RE10. I'm not sure if that's a ribbon, but it's a little small mic that has no proximity effect. So when you're recording guitars, you can basically put it right up to the grill cloth. And they're vintage, but they're way under $1,000, and pretty good little tip. But the M500 for acoustics and percussion is still like my number one.
And he's giving me the Joe Rogan fucking cod piece.
It's a gain staging thing. It's a gain staging thing.
I really need the TG2 for guitars and basses. I really don't like recording amps. It feels like taking like a picture of a picture of a picture of a picture. It's like the amp is in the room, so you're not even recording the amp, you're recording the room. You can get a direct line from certain amps, but it's all like a bit of a mind fuck. And my approach, at least recently with recording, is very much like, I'm not trying to recreate any live magic. I'm trying to like do like my own magic trick with the studio. And when I'm just direct in a TG2, specifically with the bass, I can get so much interesting shit. And it feels like this, like, it feels like page one of a book rather than something that you have to distill. Like if I'm in a TG2, I'm like, okay, I can go from here. And the signal is so interesting. Yeah, I love that. I'd have a hard time without it.
So the sound of it is basically like, right? But you can play like funky stuff on and it sounds so cool, like. And it sounds more or less like a guitar. You don't really hear the sitarness of it. And then also like doubling melodies, like if you really want to go for the like TSOP thing, like Sound of Philadelphia, like 70s stuff, just playing melodies like, you know.
Time for a quick Tape It feature highlight. Tape It allows you to record in stereo, utilizing the full microphone capacity on an iPhone along with gentler dynamic compression. It gives you a much more natural sound and is a huge upgrade to the all-round audio quality. To find out more, follow the link in the description or use the promo code Tape Notes for 20% off Tape It Pro.
It's the thing I get asked about the most when people hear the record is like, what happened to those drums, or what are those drums doing?
Yeah. So this is it going through the thing I call the crawler machine.
So the crawler machine got invented during Crawler, and it's basically like a very interesting combination of pedals and hardware that Bowen started needing to use live to recreate some of the Crawler moments. But he would do these kind of performances in the studio where we'd run things through the Crawler machine, and he would kind of just lose his mind on it, and we'd pick the best pieces, and that's what this whole drum performance is.
No, so it's just a load of different effects, and then there's like noise generators. There's a lot of Mooger Fugger stuff on it. There's loop. There's like a big loop station thing, and Electro-Harmonix loop station thing, and I just had been using all this stuff to kind of make weird production choices, put on vocals, put on bass, put on drums. And my guitar tech, Gavin, was like, right, you write down everything that happened, and then I'm going to design something that'll make it happen. So there's loads of there's loads of expression pedals on the floor. There's lots of MIDI flying around that you can control certain things from. You can move quickly between effects. And what I really needed was, I needed something that wasn't programmed. I needed something that was performative, because if I'm going to be stood still on a stage at an Idol show, it needs to have some sort of performance to it. So it becomes this very expressive thing. It's got these big knobs. I can move things around, and that's what you hear. It becomes you play it.
In the early PC days, I think I used, what's that classic, is it Rode something? And there's a sort of starter mic that everyone has that comes with an interface. So all the early PC stuff was just done with that. And then I got, at the time, I thought it was really expensive, but now it's like massively inflated in price. But I got a secondhand Sony C800G, which is like, I got it for a few £1,000s via a shop. But now it's like 15K or something, and it's like it got used. It's like, a bunch of, I think it's like Post Malone and other sort of rap vocals and a bunch of pop as well. And it was known back in the day as a Mariah Carey mic, and right. It's got this sort of lineage as like quite a bright, intense, detailed mic. But because I've basically been using the same one of those for not quite a decade, but a really long time, and I've sort of tried to carefully travel with it, I'll just record Charlie on that. I'm not even using a compressor. I mean, I'll use a Logic compressor, but I'll just have a Neve clone preamp, and it's pretty dry. And the nice thing about that mic, because it's so high end and it's so like clean as well, you can stack vocals and you don't really feel the kind of noise of endless stacking. So even I'm not doing a lot of that, but it feels like a bit like using a kind of magnifying glass. So yeah, a bunch of funny Charlie demos, even if we're just recording in a garage, will be using a pretty decent mic, so that I can capture those and not have to go back and retrack it and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But there's a nice thing you can get with the C800 too, where you can make quiet vocal takes feel quite upfront and quite in your face, as well as loud ones. It's not, there's some mics, so even if they're really great, you have to like kind of go for it to feel it going for it. With that, you can actually get away if you do the gain staging sort of right. A very kind of whispered thing can be like right on your ears. So yeah, that's become a little bit of my very lazy engineering signature. Like, use a really expensive mic and don't do much else.
If you go back to its time, like the Bass 6, like especially in Nashville and even in LA too, the Wrecking Crew, and it was on every song. It was there to help reinforce the upright bass, give it like that tic-tac sound that they talk about, because otherwise the upright is so kind of dull and woofy, which is cool, but the Bass 6 did this thing that gave it a tack and a sharpness, and that became like the sound of kind of the spaghetti western thing, and so many great classic country recordings, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, any Sinatra stuff, Ennio Morricone.
Cool.
It was on everything for like 6 years, 7 years.
Base 6 awareness.
And then it was like, and then people stopped using it. And
So what is the Base 6 then?
I'm so glad you asked. The Base 6 was
go.
in the era of electric guitars, where electric guitars were like plugins, like the laptop. That was new and exciting, and the adults hated it and the kids loved it, you know, in terms of like, this is ruining music, and the kids are like, this is music, you know. The Base 6 was one of a lot of ideas kind of thrown out there that was like, maybe this will sell, maybe this will be something people want, but it's a 6-string bass that was kind of geared towards guitar players. So it's imagine a guitar that's an octave lower, so it's in the bass range. It's not quite the scale length of most basses, so it doesn't have the complete low end, but it does have a really distinct low end, so it doesn't ever really step on the bass in terms of like sonically in a mix. It does an amazing job at reinforcing what a bass is doing, and it does an amazing job at staying out of the way of guitars as well. It's this very low, just guitar that we've all heard 1,000 times before, but it's never been the forefront. You know, it's kind of there in all these ancient recordings as a reinforcement. And so I loved bringing it to the forefront of this record as a way to kind of give it a sound that was a little more nostalgic, but doesn't jump out. It's not demanding your attention in the way a lot of guitars do.
There's kind of like a secret weapon we had on this record, which is a microphone made by Lauten. This microphone isolates better than almost any microphone I've ever heard in my life. So we had it on the horns, and I'm going to just show you how little drum bleed you have. I'm telling you, you have 3 percussionists playing and a drum set. And check this out. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, the drum set is 10 feet away from him in a large room. This is Bob Reynolds playing tenor saxophone. Let's check out his solo real quick.
Yeah, I hate to say that it's like, because it is a bit of a rare one, but it's just changed a lot for me. I got really into Altec stuff from getting put onto it by producers I look up to and friends. And at first it was kind of like I was using old Altec mixers to kind of crunch things and just running things really hot into solid state mixers, tube mixers, and using them as distortion. But then I started getting certain mixers from old like Altec 5-channel things that are only a couple $100. These aren't like super insane, but I started getting ones with EQs on them, and I started loving the low end EQ on any piece of Altec gear became my thing. So if you see an old green piece of Altec gear and it says LF on it, that became my kick drum sound. That became a big bass thing for me. And so if Bowen actually shifts a little bit, right behind him there are these 2 EQs. They're Altec 9073s. Let me tilt it. These guys right here, I have them right there next to my volume knob for a reason, because I just use them on almost everything. And I was in a session recently with someone whose drums I aspire to get even close to, and I played them some stuff I was working on, and they were like, what is on the drums on this song? You should do that to all of your drums. And I went and looked at it, and all it was like an old sample of a break through that EQ. And in this insane loud room, the Red Room at Moloko in London, I'm listening on like giant Augsburgers, and my drums are punching way better in this one song than anywhere else, and it was this EQ. So now I've built myself a console with those EQs in it, and then on every channel. Well, there's a smaller version, but it's become my whole sound for live recording.
Is that what made... I'm going to ask you a question. Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Mark Bowen asks...
Come in.
How do you get your snares so bright but with so much weight? That's the thing for me. It's like, you know, we listen to Pop 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 there. The snare is so much brighter than I would have made the choice.
Yeah.
Because I'm always looking for weight from snare.
I'm always fighting against people in hip hop who are clipping their drums, whether they know it or not sometimes. Now, obviously, like always like people are doing it on purpose, but the way FL sounded for years, it has a certain ceiling to it. So drums in FL have this kind of clipped thing to it. It became a really big sound in hip hop because of Metro Boomin and other huge producers. And for me, even when I go to a kit recorded with 10 mics or whatever, a bit of clipping or a bit of like stock Ableton saturation and things like that give it like a different, not the weight. The weight's going to come from how you're recording it, the sound of the sample, whatever, but the snappiness and the punch that you feel like you don't get sometimes from like when you listen to a close mic on a drum kit and you're like, this sounds nothing like a sick trap snare or whatever. It's a little bit of clipping for me really is the thing where I think people hear drums that I do that are live instruments or like live recorded drums and they go, wow, this really hits like something on a rap song or this or that. It's clipping. I really like Ven Audio V Clip. And then I'm an Ableton guy, so I really like the Ableton stock saturator and just Engage soft clip. But I think that like you put that on your drums right now and tell me it doesn't make a difference.
I'm old fashioned when it comes to that. You know, it's like API preamps, Neumann microphones, but the 1176 is probably the one kind of go-to thing because just for me, compression is the sound of popular music. You know, it's not just there to limit the dynamic range. It does something to the transients. It's like 1176 is almost like tracing out an image and bringing things really forward. And you know, I just have that across all over this record, basically.
Yeah, very interesting. And what about you two over there in LA?
For a bank balance, however.
Sorry.
1176 is the one.
A big fan of the Purple Audio one,
Oh,
to be honest.
MC77.
A big fan of the Purple Audio 77. Huge fan of that.